I'm Corbett Wall with DB Auction, here with your feeder flash for Wednesday, January the 5th, brought to you in part by Sweet Pro. Sweet Pro blocks boost fertility, they improve herd health, and also give cattle energy to withstand the cold temperatures this time of year. For more information, go to sweetpro.com. $6 corn. I mentioned on a recent visit that $6 corn was going to be a definite bear to your cattle markets, and we blew by $6 on Tuesday morning on the Chicago Board of Trade Futures, and it does not appear to be a fluke. It looks like that's probably where we're at, and we're probably going to continue to get higher on your corn. And now we're just trying to guesstimate where this corn may stop. Now, what caused it to boost over $6 and to take off again? Well, South America's extreme weather. We've got extremely dry conditions in southern Brazil and Argentina. We've got flooding conditions on the north part of Brazil, and it's just not looking like a really good situation for them to improve, increase the supply of corn and beans. Beans were up huge too, or especially beans, but that $6 corn, people just not used to hearing that. Harvest is over, so we don't have that to think about. We're not looking at that. We're just kind of judging supplies until we start to get into the spring and start thinking about planting season and what kind of levels we have of moisture for that. But we know that our fertilizer has tripled in most places since a year ago, whenever people were putting it down. And so, a lot of our farmers are just not going to be able to put as much fertilizer down as they want to. That's going to hurt our yields. There's nothing more directly related to yields than the amount of fertilizer that you put down. But we're up again it here on our feedstuffs. And now we know that we've got extremely dry conditions up through the middle part of the country here, especially in the southern plains. Very little way to cheapen those cattle up. Basically, no wheat pasture. What wheat pasture there was has been eaten down, and then the cold snap has made that wheat crawl down in the ground. We're seeing cattle coming off that wheat. They're good as yearlings. They're not yearlings, but they've been straightened up calves that were put out on the wheat, coming in, weighing in the 6s. And there'll be some good demand for those cattle, but gosh, it's going to take a lot of feed to get those cattle where we need them. And hay's expensive. There's not anything to feed the cattle, and we're going to see if the old adage comes true that high corn makes high cattle. Because our corn is really high, our cattle are pretty high, and we assume the cattle continue to get higher, but there's just nothing to feed these things. And so we'll just have to see how this plays out. But it's going to be high corn, going to be high cattle. How we continue to take these cattle to these extreme weights to get the high percentage of high choice and prime cattle that these packers have got spoiled with. Since they backed up the supplies due to the COVID shutdowns. I don't know how that's all going to work, but that's kind of what we're up against right now. I want to say something as kind of a tribute to my friend Ed Serwin with CZ Analytics here of recent years. A lot of you guys that keep up with these markets have looked at his newsletter and seen some of the things that he put out. Many of you have heard him on RFD TV. He had a lot of contacts with your farm radio people and did a lot of broadcasting on the radios. And Ed passed away on Monday night. He had been struggling with Lou Gehrig's or ALS for the last several years. And it had to have been so frustrating for him. It was probably a blessing that he went ahead and gone, because his mind was good, locked up in a body that basically couldn't do anything for itself anymore. Ed had typed up his newsletters in recent years, one finger at a time, and up until just a few weeks ago, whenever it got to where he would, he could type a couple of words and just have to take a break. and he couldn't speak, so he couldn't get any of his caretakers to help him with that. But I tell you what, Ed Serwin and I were friends for a long, long time, for over 20 years. Whenever I got to St. Joe Stockyards in the year 2000, I got transferred there with USDA AMS. Ed was the manager of St. Joe Stockyards. I was in charge of reporting all the markets there. We hung out together, we drank together, we were friendly, we hung out in the exchange building together, and it wasn't too long after I had got there that Ed had taken a job. We had some openings with mandatory price reporting coming into St. Joe Stockyards. Ed had taken a job with USDA AMS, and our supervisor, my supervisor at the time, Phil McFall, he was Western Area Supervisor, and he asked me if I would train Ed. And I said, train him? I said, he's 20 years my senior. He worked for Wilson Meat Company. He managed sale barns up in the northern plains up in Wisconsin, equity barns. He'd been manager of St. Joe Stockyards for 12 or 15 years. I said, you know, what do you want me to train him? He said, I want you to train him to be a market man, to be a market reporter. And so Ed and I spent a lot of time together for a couple of years there, and he traveled with me, and I taught him how we report auction markets, and I taught him about you know, the different things that we looked at to you know, that affected market conditions. And Ed really took to it. And he was a guy that wasn't really up on his IT things. He wasn't all that techy. He took a lot of classes on his own to learn how to be more proficient on the computer, and he started doing that. He started building databases. He started putting a lot of graphs together and doing a lot of things, and he was transferred down to Amarillo here and did that as market reporting. But much as USDA AMS is, he was doing a lot of extra work for our customers. You know, we had customers with USDA Market News, people that looked to him for some of this data he was putting together. And much like I had experienced that probably 10 years earlier as I started doing these video market reports when I was with USDA, the federal government doesn't want its employees to get any kind of notoriety personally. And so not only do they not give any bonuses or extra time for doing more work than everybody else, they don't want it. And he got squeezed out similarly to the way that I did. And so he got squeezed out. He was more than happy to do that. He was at an age where he could kind of semi-retire, and then he started doing his broadcasting on his own, and he established that CZ Analytics and put out his newsletter. But you know, Ed was a good guy, and he knew a lot about the markets, and we're going to miss him. And but I'm glad that he's not suffering through that debilitating disease any longer. Let's talk about your board. For Tuesday, February live cattle futures down $1.10 at 137.82. April was down $1.52 at 142.67. Why fat cattle goes down? Whenever your corn goes up, the fat cattle are done with the corn, right? So why would they go down? Well, I think the reason that our fat cattle did go down some on Tuesday is because we're starting to see more information come out about the COVID and this Omicron, and you know, people aren't dying from it as much, and they aren't going in and getting on ventilators and things like that, but they're just getting sick. And you know, and historically when people got sick, you know, they felt like shit for 2 or 3 days. Some of them would work through it, some of them would stay home. But now when you get sick, you know, if you're working on a line somewhere, you'll go get tested, and they'll say you're positive for corona, and then you can't come to work for several days. Well, it's a whole different deal now. And so it's kind of going in waves all around the country, and we had some eastern plants on the eastern part of the United States that are seeing that. They're not able to get very many people in there into those plants to work. And some of you people that are just looking to make the market go up and down, they tried to make that into a rumor that it's going to hit the Midwest and it's going to hit our major plants there, and it very well could. Who knows? But that was the argument that they used to make live cattle go down on Tuesday. Going your back months of live cattle, over down a nickel to down $1.10. January feeder cattle contracts down hard on that $6 corn, down $3.57 to 162.67. That's still a premium to what your real-time index is. I don't know why that feeder cattle contract has been running at such a premium to what our index levels are, but even after that big $3.50 loss, we're just now getting back down there to par, and we're in the spot months right now, so it's not terrible. March feeder cattle down 317 at 166.35. Go on your back months of your feeder cattle down 70 cents to down 270. Been talking about the grains. Corn for March was up 20.25 cents a bushel at 609.5. It didn't just get to 6 and stay there. It blew right by it like it was standing still. Kansas City hard red winter wheat was up 12.5 cents. Back up to 804, which it's been well into the 8s quite a bit here this fall, and will probably continue to do that with the continued drought conditions in the southern plains. March beans up 34.25 cents a bushel at 13.89 3/4. So grains are just they're going to get really out of control here, and even if we start getting some winter moisture in the southern plains, which is not likely at all. I mean, you go out as far as you want to go and you don't see a 10% chance for any moisture in the southern plains. But even if we did, that's not going to help a whole lot. They are getting some snows in the Midwest and some in the northern plains, but the wheat's not going to help a whole lot because it's going to stay cold now. But until we start to get into spring, we'll just see how things are then. But guys that do have wheat, if they're taking the cattle off of them now, the cattle will never go back out, because we've got wheat prices over $8. They're not going to let guys turn cattle out for 30, 45 days, and then if we do get some moisture, tromp out more wheat, than what they're selling. So no, that's not going to happen. So there's no relief for any kind of grazing or any kind of a cheap gain for our cattle. Fat cattle trade, non-existent direct basis pretty much on Tuesday. Did have one big group up in Nebraska there sell at 220 dressed, and that's basically steady. And that's usually what they kind of do. But did have a fat cattle auction, a big one. Stockman's Livestock, Yankton, South Dakota, had over 2,500 head of slaughter cattle. A lot of them were cows too, but the fat cattle sold from 138 to 143 mostly, with a few top sales, and not just one or two, but few bunches of top sales there. Steers and heifers up to 146.75. Guys, they need your fat cattle. Don't start backing off of them just because the board took a hiccup on your live cattle futures. Box beef cutout values are stronger again. Choice cuts on Tuesday afternoon, 266.82 up 79 cents. Selects 259.23 up 33 cents. Your slaughter is disappointing, and this is what I told you hurt your live cattle futures more than anything. Slaughter come in through Tuesday just 224,000. That's 14,000 less than last week, which was a holiday week towards the end of the week there, and right after Christmas, and 6,000 less than the same week a year ago, and it was because some of this, I keep saying COVID, but I guess everything's COVID. Nobody ever gets a cold anymore, but they're not dying from it so much. But anyway, going to be a struggle to keep these laborers to come into these plants and do that work. Your beef cow kill is staying record big, guys. So we're short of beef cows, and they continue to harvest those beef cows at a record level, and we're continuing to see them do that. So you guys, kind of keep your eye on some of this breeding stock and replacement quality heifers, because there's going to be a big drive on them over the next 6 months to a year and a half here. And talking about replacement type stock, talk about what else is going on. How about superior genetics from Beaver Red Angus? They're a sponsor here. They've been a customer of ours for many years. Performance is cornerstone for Beaver Red Angus there. They've got 60 years experience there in putting together some of the best top quality Red Angus genetics that you can find anywhere. Don't forget their spring yearling bull sale, going to be 260 head or thereabouts. It's going to be on Thursday, March the 3rd. It's going to be at the ranch near Leola, South Dakota, or you can just get on to dvauction.com, view and bid the sale right there, and then they'll have their online female sale the next month in April 20th and 21st. That's going to be on dvauction.com too. So don't forget Beaver Red Angus. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DV Auction. Late in the day on Tuesday, had your 800-pound steers index level there with real-time index at 160, 136, down another 85 cents. But your market wasn't so much lower. We're just starting to get some numbers built back up in that index, and it's going to kind of straighten out here before long. But like I said, that's over a buck under what your January contract was down on the board, with it down $3.50. So I would say we'll see those futures bounce back, and I would say some of your grains will come down a little bit here on Wednesday, but it's going to kind of stay in that general trend. Let's talk about some of your big sales on Tuesday. Ozarks Regional Stockyard in West Plains, Missouri, 4,300 head for their regular sale, which included an additional sets of cattle in there for their wean vac special. So they had the wean vac special in conjunction with their regular sale. They had 4,300 through the ring, another 800 thereabouts on their in-house video that they do with DV Auction. So a lot of cattle being marketed there at Ozarks Regional Stockyard. Compared to the last good test, which was 3 weeks ago before Christmas, steer calves are $6 to $9 higher. Heifer calves $4 to $8 higher. Yearlings were not well tested early, and they were still selling cattle up into the night there. How about Unionville Livestock Market? That's in extreme north central Missouri, and they had a good sale there. They sell those Rockin' R backgrounded yearlings there from Lucerne, Missouri, and they had 6 loads of them in there, all in the heavy weights. They heavy 8 weights. They averaged 868 pounds. They sold from 160.75 to 160.250. How about Gordon Livestock Market in Gordon, Nebraska? They sell 92 head, 620 pound fancy steer calves at 183.75. I mentioned to you guys about some of these heifers. You might want to be thinking about keeping back some more of your heifers, which is going to exacerbate the light numbers that we already have. But we've had a ton of heifers on feed for the last year or 2 or 3, and we've harvested a lot of them. But some replacement quality heifers, you want to keep on the outlook for them, because they are going to get very precious, and then you breed them, and then some real fancy bred heifers are going to be awfully good property going forward here. But went out to Lone Star Stockyards there, managed by my friend Bill Martin here in Wildorado, Texas, just west of Amarillo, and they had one of the premier consignments. It was Brenda Michaels cattle there. If you guys know Brenda Michaels, that's Benny Binion's daughter, but she's settled in the Amarillo area, ranched and run cattle around here for a long time. But she's been using 44 Farms genetics. Come in there with these fancy heifers right here, 150 head of them, weighed 712 pounds at 151.50, which I didn't think was really crazy high, guys. But you need to be checking out where they're going to have some of these fancy heifers around, guys. Get on to dvauction.com. You can view and bid the Lone Star Stockyards there every Tuesday, but be looking around whenever they have droves of cattle like that. Those heifers there would have made some nice moderate-sized heifers and cows there that would have been really a hot commodity going forward. Let's talk about some other high quotes from around the region. Kingsville Livestock Auction in Kingsville, Missouri. That's west central Missouri there. They sold about the highest 8 weights that I saw anywhere. They were the Steve Varner cattle from Odessa, Missouri there. 197 head of those steers weighed 840 pounds at 166.10. How about Kimball Livestock Exchange, Kimball, South Dakota? Highest 5 weight steers I saw. 53 head of them, weighed 561 pounds at 204.50. But the best quote that I saw anywhere on Tuesday, your National Beef Wire top quote for the day, come out of Farmers and Ranchers Livestock in Salina, Kansas. Special Tuesday sale there. 68 head, 766 pound steers at 174.75. That's your feeder flash for Wednesday.